Daniel Radcliffe, il giovane attore famoso per aver interpretato Harry Potter nella famosa saga, è arrivato a Venezia per presentare in concorso alle Giornate degli Autori Kill Your Darlings di John Krokidas. La pellicola racconta la storia degli iconici poeti ribelli Allen Ginsberg e Jack Kerouac prima che diventassero icone della Beat Generation.
First folio Hamlet, the Gutenberg Bible. These are among the university's prized possessions. Hands off the glass.
Let's hear a bit, shall we? On a Sunday afternoon, when the shutters are down and the proletariat possesses the street, there are certain thoroughfares which remind one of nothing less.
I'd been aware of Ginsberg since I was about 14 years old, and I read the first line of Howl when I was about that age. It was a few years before I then read the rest of it. But I was more a fan actually of, I was given Naked Lunch by William Burroughs when I was 14 to read, and I really got into that just because it was sort of so anarchic and chaotic and appealed to me at the time. And so I was much more aware of Kerouac and Burroughs than I was of Ginsberg when I first started making the film. But then, you know, I have a huge interest in poetry, so when so I was obviously very aware of his work. And then when I got the part, it was a fantastic excuse to then dive into his life and start researching him. And the main resource for me in looking into his character was his diaries that he started making when he was very young, and they're an amazing insight into the mind of a young genius. And he absolutely, you know, saw himself as a genius, and was just not sure what form that was going to take. So I mean, I think in doing the film, I learned about his relationship with his mother and his family, and that really informed how I read his poetry in a much deeper way. And I think doing the film has given me a much greater appreciation for Ginsberg and his work. I'm not playing Allen Ginsberg, the great literary giant that everyone knows. I'm playing a guy called Alan from Paterson, New Jersey, who's going to a university for the first time where he suddenly thinks everyone is smarter and richer than he is, and he feels socially insecure and intellectually insecure, and it's about him finding his way out of that and falling in love in the process, and the way that, you know, turned him into the poet that he became, or the part that played in that journey. Yeah, I don't think I felt particular pressure because it was Ginsberg, and because I think, you know, had it been John Keats, I would have felt it in a different way, because I am an obsessive sort of Keats fan. But because I didn't have that relationship with Ginsberg, I didn't really feel that pressure. But I did feel a huge amount of pressure to put in a good performance, and because, you know, I love John's script so much that I just wanted to be, you know, an important part of bringing it to life, and I wanted to, you know, do justice to the great characters and the great character he'd written. So that was the only pressure I felt.
When I was writing a list of all the young actors who I admired and wanted to work with, when I wrote down the name Daniel Radcliffe, a thought came to me, which is that the role in Alan in this movie goes from somebody who's a dutiful son, who's kind of only shown the world one side of themselves, one color, and by the end of the film has shown all of this passion, this love, this hatred, this jealousy, and this artistry, and declares himself a poet, an artist, and a rebel. And not knowing Dan, I wondered whether or not the person Dan Radcliffe could relate to this or not. We sent him the script, and the next thing I knew, I was having coffee with him while he was doing Equus on Broadway. And meeting an actor, I now realize, is kind of like a first date, that you know within the first 5 minutes whether or not there's chemistry between the two of you. And because this was my first film, I realized that there had to be an extreme level of trust between me and my leading actor. I was going to have to ask him to go to emotional places that were quite deep, and that he was going to have to trust me that I would bring him there. And Dan has just such a great optimistic way of looking at the world, of making fun of himself and using his misfortunes for the humor of all of his friends and those he knows. And it's an operating system that's very close to my own. And with a very short time, we were sharing a lot of intimate details with each other, and I realized that there was a really good chemistry. And then he offered to audition for me. And in that audition, we threw around a couple of scenes, we improv with each other, and I just saw all of these other colors and emotions that he hadn't shown yet in the one role that we largely know him for. So the answer is I cast him A, because he was the best actor for the role. B, he was someone who I trust and admired greatly. And C, I knew I would have a fun time working with him.
Security?
What the hell are you doing? Alert the press! Tell them Lucian Carr is innocent!